Hello everyone and welcome to the Constructive Criticism Network. This network is here to help you improve at Magic the Gathering at every level. From Pauper Leagues to Top 1000 Mythic, we've got you covered. If you want to hear the entire network, head on over to our sponsor at puremtgo.com, where you can hear each and every show, each and every week, and check out their sponsor, MTGO Traders, and tell them that the CCMTG Network sent you. Now sit back, enjoy the show. From YouTube, podcasts, and more, here's this week's episode from ConstructiveCriticism.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the emergency episode of Constructive Criticism, as Allie called it. We live this morning before we go off to work and do our sort of thing because, Allie, I think there was a BNR change that happened. I kind of just woke up and you were like, we got to get this out here. What happened, Allie? Is it just like Fable Passage got banned or whatever to hurt Uro? Is that what happened?
Yeah, that's what I thought. Well, actually, if I'm not just being a jerk, I thought it was just Wilderness Reclamation ban. But there are four, I guess three formats touched by this BNR and Brawl. If we have some Brawl fans out there, that was also hit.
Shout out to our Brawl homies. We see you. Yeah, so this announcement dropped. I woke up, was turned on Twitter because I'm addicted, and had a couple of messages and was tagged, and I was like, oh my goodness. And so got together with Allie, and we're here normally. We both be getting ready for work. Allie be about to go live on her stream, twitch.tv/mythicmeebo. So if you're listening to this, the plan is to actually push this out as soon as we're done here. So you can actually just go check Allie out and watch her play this brand new stand format. Like Allie said, 3 formats got hit. There's 10 cards across those 3 formats of Standard, Pioneer, and Historic. I actually want to make it kind of a surprise if you haven't heard this. So, Allie, let's just jump right into Standard here since we do want to crank this episode. It's going to be a shorter episode for this week. First up is Wilderness Reclamation. What do you think of that card, Allie? That's a card that's, you've had a lot of fun memories, a couple of good success stories with. How do you feel about Rec going?
I mean, I'm obviously a fan of Wilderness Reclamation. I love Team Rec. I love Nexus decks, but even I was getting tired of it. So when I'm tired of it, it's probably a time to go. I think out of everyone that loves these decks and still plays it, it seems like only maybe Autumn is still enjoying it. Everyone else, even like really good people that love the Team Rec, even the Team Rec mirrors, I think they're pretty interesting, but everyone seems just pretty done with it, so I'm not surprised by this ban.
Yeah, this is the thing that I think maybe if we weren't in quarantine and we hadn't played so much Magic all the time, everyone hadn't, right, the vitriol wouldn't be to the level it's at. I expect people would be tired because Reclamation's so good and it's clearly the best thing to be doing by a lot, but we wouldn't be playing Magic such an increased percentage during this whole time. Reclamation has been insane. Reclamation was good during the Companion era, right? It was one of the few decks you could play that wasn't a Companion deck. And, maybe the deck's been different every time. And, it's been kind of cool to see the different kind of things you could do. But at a certain point, you get really tired with stuff. And this is an opinion I have on a couple cards on the BNR list for today, is even if you think that maybe they won't change up the world too much, I'm so glad we have a content ban. And we're going to get to that in a second, but just cards getting banned for the sake of things changing right now, I think is a healthy choice and something that is probably good for the world we live in right now, where we're playing Magic all the time, and trying out maybe banning more cards is a good thing. So
I do want to sorry.
No, you're good. What was that?
I do want to touch on something kind of related to this. Is I think in the past everyone has been really reluctant for bannings because it was Magic was pretty much only a paper format, and Arena was kind of just starting out. No one cared too much about their Moto collections. Some people did, but it was mostly just paper. So really big monetary and community effects on that. And I think this is an interesting point in Magic's time. It can either just stay how it is, but like maybe we can get a little more aggressive in the bans or like changing up stuff because everything is essentially just online right now, and it probably will be for at least a year.
Yeah.
And I'm curious what comes like after that. Obviously, a ton of people love the Gathering and love paper Magic and stuff, but maybe at some point it's just like better for the game to kind of adopt these other game styles of like I mean like other games like TFT or related games have patches like literally every week or every other week or whatever. Maybe that's something that Magic evolves into if it dives into becoming about the health of the game more than the secondary market, I guess.
Yeah, I think I think one of Magic's biggest strengths, and the reason that the game's been alive longer than either of us, is that it's willing to take risks, right? And it's willing to change what it is, and it's willing to try things, even if it's a failure, right? Like Companions, they had to know carried a huge amount of risk, right? Like it could just be terrible, and also if Companions were a hit, that potentially means we're changing the plans for Magic going forward, just like Planeswalkers did forever, right? And that might still be the case now that they're nerfed. But you open the door to completely change what your game is. And I think that WotC's really good at being open to that stuff. And I think now is a perfect time, just like you said, where, listen, we have to be careful about how many cards we ban in paper because that's going to force people out of our format. Like, and it will just kill some people's decks, and we don't want to do that too often unless we really have to. But right now on Arena, we can refund you, and sure, the cards that work with the cards get banned. Like, you essentially ban Oven. Spoiler, Card Unfamiliar got banned today. When you ban Cat, like, there will be decks that play it, but not nearly as much. But we have to do something. The game's in such a hectic state, and it's better to, like, make these big bans that make a lot of people more happy and more excited to play the game and want to play with your cards. Because if it's in paper, right, and you can technically play with your standard cards, but no one wants to play, can you really play with your standard cards, you know? And if that's the case, if you and your homies really like that format, just play it with the ban sound effect, you know? Just, that's okay. You can do that sort of stuff. So
Yeah, I'm really interested. This is a little like off what we're talking about, but I'd be really interested to see if Magic comes back, if tournament structures in paper kind of focus more on like mod structures in paper kind of focus more on like modern or other formats that maybe even like Pioneer. Maybe this was like the last big Pioneer ban, but like so paper formats could be like modern and Pioneer and maybe even like Legacy. And then you could look at like formats like Standard and Historic for mostly online play, because that was kind of what it was anyway. But that also allows these more like reactive bans and more way to kind of fix the format, because I think Standard is like super susceptible to being like dominated by like, oh, there was one good card in this card pool, so now the format is like dominated by it.
yeah.
Whereas like
I
that's
agree.
less a case in the older formats because there's just a bigger card pool.
Yeah, it's so much harder to print something that's so much better than everything. Like, imagine having to print like a 6/6 card that, you know, completely invalidated a bunch of other cards. It'd be really hard to do. And they also kind of have like a better idea for the most part of like how strong something's going to be, right? Like, if you print another version of a card you've already printed in Modern, you're like, okay, I know that makes X deck better, but we've seen that X deck isn't very good right now, so it's probably okay to give it a shot in the arm, even if we need to take a ban later, right? And in Standard, it's like, I have an idea of what this does because I'm Modern, but then like things will get slipped through the crack a lot easier, right? It turns out like, oh dang, Bushwhackers is really good if there's not, you know, Path, Bolt, and Push in the format. So yeah, I agree 100%. I also think that like if Arena and Magic was as big as it is online now as was like, if it was as big now as it was 5 years ago, a lot of formats would be in the situation we are now. Just like playing a bunch of Magic online stuff lets us figure out this stuff a lot quicker. It also builds up hate a lot quicker, right? Because like if you don't like something, you experience it more and more. If you don't like something, you experience it more and more and more, and then you want to vent about it. So I think that like we maybe need to approach this kind of style if we're going to keep doing what we're going to do, right? We're just the way we play and interact with the game is totally different now.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, well, I mentioned it, so I guess we'll just talk about it. Cauldron Familiar is banned. That I'm gonna kind of lead here because I like Cauldron Familiar a lot, and I have the suspicion that the fear was, oh no, we're going to Zendikar Rising. Our dual lands are probably good enough to maintain this Jund food deck, and Jund food, we have a big fear is going to invalidate everything since they lose Mayhem Devil, which is huge. But that was like the only card. Oh, I'm sorry. The new versions play Priest, so they lost Priest and Devil, and that's it. And you really don't want like anything from this era to be good. I would imagine in the new one, you really want people to feel like it's a blank slate. And sure, Trail and Corvold are still really good cards, but when you don't have that cat to completely lock down aggro strategies and move through your deck so much quicker, and just honestly, cat plus oven. Like, 3 ovens and a cat beats almost everything in Standard before you get to, Corvold or anything like that. And I think it was a big part in aggro decks having a harder time being around. I don't think it killed them. I think it definitely hindered them. So, I think the cat had to go for the homies. That's what I think.
I don't know. This one made me pretty sad. Obviously, like, I've had success with this deck as well, but I don't know. I understand why people didn't like the deck. I think even like aggro decks though, like Embercleave kind of just invalidates the cat oven combo. So I think there was like real ways to hate against this card. I do understand the worry of just like, oh, we're hitting like Bant with Growth Spiral into Fairy, we're hitting Reclamation with Growth Spiral and Reclamation, and like Sacrifice might just be the best deck from there on out. So just kind of preemptively avoiding that. It still made me sad.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally sympathize with that. I definitely have some... I think the word's treputation. Is that the word? I definitely said that word wrong. I have some hesitation about it. I'm not editing that out either. It's staying in. I gotta get to work soon. And I think that it's probably net neutral in my opinion, but I much rather not have any more complaints about the Eldring format because I have a big fear that like Embercleave might be the best thing to do by a lot right now, and I guess we'll see how that bears out over the next couple of days. Leading into the new standard, and then in the new standard format, Embercleave does. My first thoughts are if you ban the other 3 cards, and you left Cauldron Familiar unbanned, Cauldron Familiar is like very, very good and easily one of the best things to be doing in the format. Obviously, with these cards leaving, it unbans a bunch of cards, or a bunch of cards you just couldn't play because like Teferi, Growth Spiral, and Reclamation were in the format. But Cat does the same thing, so we just have a brand new standard format. It's pretty exciting. Let's talk about Teferi Time Raveler being banned. Probably the easiest slam dunk of all time when it comes to a ban. Maybe what's a easier, like, if they had to ban one, Reclamation or Teferi?
Probably Reclamation, just based on
Sure.
how, like, because even if you ban Teferi first, then Reclamation is just like even worse than it was before with Teferi in the format.
Sure, yeah, that's fair. They'd be like, you left Reclamation behind. That's fair. Yep.
But this card sucks. Teferi sucks.
Yeah, Teferi is very, very good. It is not very fun to play against. Very quickly, after playing with Teferi, I realized I super enjoy playing with Teferi, but not against it, because when I had Teferi in play, I couldn't lose, and the game was so much easier to play. And now I've got to start playing Magic again. It's a real shame. No more Hearthstone. But yeah, this unlocks, like, I don't think it can be undersold that losing Reclamation to Fairy, Growth Spiral, and Cat unbans a bunch of cards. There were just cards you were not allowed to play with because those cards existed. And there were cards that saw play just in spite of that are bad against those cards, right? Like Nightpack Ambusher is really bad against Teferi and Cat. It's like not very good. And now, but it's like saw play that whole time, right? And now those cards are gone. And sure, you lose Growth Spiral Wreck to get into them, but everyone's slowing down now. So I'm excited to see what cards like that do. Let's talk about Growth Spiral. Oh, sorry. What are you going to say?
I forgot.
All right. Whatever. Growth Spiral, it's banned. This does feel like a content ban. Like, okay, let's really make sure that, like, the blue-green ramp decks are not good and will hit Uro slightly by banning this card. It's a little bit harder to, like, do the Uro 28 land thing, whatever. Allie, how do you feel? I like it being banned, personally.
I like it banned too. It was pretty much just like the common denominator between all of the best decks in the format, right? Like you had to play Growth Spiral or you had to play Uro. I think Uro is probably the better and more egregious card, but I don't know. Maybe if we like look at more of like a micro level, everyone is playing 4 Growth Spirals. Some people are playing like 1 or 2 Uros. That probably just like ups the number of Uros, I guess, but I do agree. Just like Growth Spiral on turn 2 was, it really just like set up like some broken things, and people are gonna look at Growth Spiral and be like, man, it's a 2-drop, you draw a card and play a land or whatever. Like that's not that good, and it's just like it's setting up just playing a whole turn ahead of your opponent, or if you're on the draw, it puts you like on the same turn as if you were on the play, or like, it's just like it changes the dynamic of the matchup at kind of like a fundamental level, and I'm happy with this ban. I guess I think it enables a lot of stuff, including escaping Uro really well. So
Yeah, it really does a good job of finding and enabling Uro, right? Like, you move through your deck more, you have more lands, so you can, like, Uro and unsummon Uro all in the same turn. It does kind of a lot there, and I agree. It with the way Magic currently is about slamming haymakers, cards like Growth Spiral are a lot stronger than Explorer in the past, and Explorer was already really good. So I could see us having Explorer Growth Spiral again in the future when the format has a bunch of really late game top end and not at like the 4 or 5 mana slot, you know? Because right now, like, 4 mana cards are so powerful and have been so powerful that Growth Spiral just makes them 3 mana cards, and they are a lot better. Every card's a lot better when you cut a mana or a turn off them. I'll let you in on Magic Design secret chat. If you think, dang, this card would be a lot more fun if it cost 1 less mana, the answer is probably not. Probably was tested like that. So yeah.
yeah, it's also like preventing Ugin from being like the thing to do in Standard now.
Yeah, that's a huge point. Yeah, like, it's really, I think it is going. Aggro decks had a really hard time existing because of a lot of these cards. I know that seems weird to say. Like, I've had this conversation with people, they didn't believe me that, like, Teferi held back aggro decks a lot. But, like, play your Teferi, unsummon your big threat you just played. My Teferi dies, you replay it, I play it again, do it again, and then I play my Haymaker, and you probably can't win. Is a line that happened a lot against aggro decks. With Teferi decks, and now the Ugin decks lose all that early interaction to stop that thing from happening. They lose the way to, like, ramp up into it. Well, it's hurt, I should say. And then also now your Ugins are weak to counter magic, so things like tempo decks can, like, actually exist. The unbanning of counter spells fixes a lot of cards, including Ugin, in my opinion. And Ugin wasn't even that busted before. Like, we were just, we were still just countering it despite it being in Teferi decks, so interested to see. I'm positive, though, that day 1 Ugin will be really, really good because people won't be ready and people will complain on Twitter. So just ban Ugin for a day. Allie, that's it for standard bans. I love it. I'm once again sad to see Cat go, but it feels like a content ban, just like Growth Spiral. And if Cauldron Familiar had to go for those other 3s to go, Cauldron was a real one. Cauldron was a real one till the end, taking it for us. The 9th live. Get a little teary-eyed, Allie. A little teary-eyed.
Ooh, I remembered what I was gonna say when we were talking about Teferi.
Hit me.
I mean, we already know that Teferi like enabled or like shut down completely every form, like what am I trying to say? Teferi shut down like a ton of different strategies, and I'm just kind of excited even to see like old strategies, even if they're not very good, come back. Like, it just shut down really cool cards like Finale of Promise.
Yep.
Is that the red one?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like Is It Phoenix couldn't be a thing forever. So I don't know, maybe I try bad Is It Phoenix decks now.
Yeah. Is it Phoenix decks really can't beat Narset plus Teferi? Which stated, I know there are some people who are super negative and they wanted other cards banned or they feel like this isn't going to fix standard. But I promise you, cards are good in context to other cards, and Teferi made a bunch of cards not playable that will fix the problem with your other cards. Like, I just promise you. Just there's going to still be some broken stuff or whatever. That's fine. There's always something that's really good, but we're going to get to play with a lot of cards we weren't allowed to play with. Allie, you are technically allowed to play Absorb now. Before, you were a fool to play Counterspells. Quench, Unsubstantiate, and everything like that, right? Like, those cards that we have right now, you weren't allowed to play because Teferi existed. Now you're allowed to consider them, and they are really, really good against a lot of things. So,
Yeah.
All right. I'm excited. It sucks I have to go to work before I can play the standard thing. Hopefully it's up. Let's talk about a real one that died. Maybe my favorite deck It's got to be one of my favorite decks I've ever played in a tournament, if not one of my favorite decks of all time. This is Pioneer. Inverter of Truth is banned. Definitely need to happen, but I'm definitely still a little sad I didn't get to play in Paper One last time, you know?
Yeah, I haven't touched Pioneer in forever. I know we've kind of touched on Pioneer when we were talking about the Oath of Nissa unban, but
Which apparently did something, by the way. Apparently green decks are a little bit better now. Which
Oh yeah, I saw Mono Green Devotion like did something, I think.
Yeah, I think it like finals the challenge or maybe won it or with like the big weekend thing. And then I saw Kane and like Ross and them playing it, so hey, I'm glad we were wrong about Oath of Nissa, and I'm glad it's doing something. Maybe it's going to do a bunch more because we have a bunch of Pioneer bands to talk about. But sorry to cut you off there. Inverter's gone. Continue.
I'm like a little annoyed with the bands in Pioneer. We can start with Inverter, but I think this applies to almost everything I could talk about. Like,
which one do you want to talk about? Your choice.
No, I mean, it just like applies to all of the combo bans. Not to spoil anything yet, but it feels like there's like wasn't an effort to try and like make the deck exist in a worse form as they've done in the past for a bunch of other decks in like Modern, and like they didn't ban Primetime in Modern. They didn't ban Primetime in Modern. They banned Summer Bloom, so Amulet still got to exist. And they didn't ban like I guess for Splinter Twin it doesn't really exist, but if you really want to do that you can just play Kiki Jiki instead. Like there's like a way you can still play the deck if you really want to. And I think they could have done that with Inverter by banning Jace or something of the sorts, where there's an alternate way to keep the deck around, where banning Inverter just like ends the deck.
Yeah.
Which I'm not a huge fan of.
Yeah, I definitely don't, even though like I like this deck obviously, so I'm kind of sad to see it just get ended. It feels like what they did was, okay, we realized we messed up on the Oath of Nissa ban. That was, by the way, only 2 weeks ago. And they were like, we need to do something because Pioneer is in a drastic state. Despite events were firing because Zendikar Rising, will play the format regardless. So it feels like they were like, okay, we messed up in all the formats, and today is like we're going back to fix everything but Modern, which probably doesn't even need a fixing. And so it's like, okay, Pioneer, we just got to make sure these decks are gone so people will play the format. And Pioneer has a history of unbanning, and if they feel like they overstepped, I could see every card coming off this list except Inverter of Truth and Underworld Breach. That's my opinion, though. I just feel like they were just like, okay, we got to make sure people are playing this. We got to do something. We clearly missed the boat last time, and that means we need a heavy hand this time, Because if they like try to ban Inverter and Inverter's still the best deck, it's just so bad looking, right? And maybe in the future when other cards are banned, these cards can come back, but I don't know.
Yeah. I feel like maybe I'm more forgiving than most of the Magic community then, as I would rather have them like try it. The Magic community then, as I would rather have them like try it, and then if it doesn't work out, then you can just ban inverter later. Like that to me doesn't seem like a huge issue. I know other people take issue to that, but to me it's like shows that they're trying something, I guess, and I'd rather try than just kind of, I don't know, fold to the masses of people complaining.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's awkward because I totally agree with that sentiment, but I also, if like an R&D employee had asked me, Mason, what do you think of these bans? I'd be like, oh my gosh, you all have to do it. You all have not had a win in forever. Please, Lord, do something so they will be quiet. Like, you know what I mean? Like, don't break your game, but like, do something, please. So, it's awkward. I mentioned it, so I guess we can talk about it, even though it's on the bottom of the list here. Underworld Breach is banned as well. Breach combo, not a thing anymore. The deck was really, really good, even though it's hateable. And so it's weird to see it go. Maybe I have to think the fear is what I said earlier, that like you just gotta get people playing Pioneer, and if they think the format's pre-solved with Field, whether it is or it isn't, that's not the goal of today. So that's my opinion on it. Any thoughts, Allie?
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
We'll move to the next one. I personally don't feel like there's a lot to say about Breach. The card was like really, really strong, and like, you know, probably had to go eventually.
Yeah, Breach is kind of an egregious card. Yeah. I mean, like, it's banned in Legacy. Sure, it's not like there's more card pools there, but it seems like it's just like, if you find the right thing to do, like it's really hard to stop it. It's super resilient too.
Yep, agreed. Card's really, really strong. It might be the best thing to do in Historic now. Walking Ballista is banned in Pioneer. Poor Hardened Scale stacks. They keep getting something like accidentally hit. Allie, what are your thoughts?
Sorry, I was chewing on something.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah, I'm kind of... I feel like if that's the goal, is to hit the mono white devotion deck, just hit like Heliod instead. I think both of the decks, mono white and Hardened Scales, can still function then. Not that I think mono white is completely dead. It just has to like change now. That's probably Earl on that hadn't even like crossed my mind. So I'm like, it's a little rough.
Yeah, it's so awkward because I think if you ban Heliod, you save Scales but kill white, and if you ban Ballista, you kill Scale. I'm sorry, you save white but kill Scales. Right?
Yeah.
It's like someone has to die. My opinion is that I think Scales is a cooler deck, even if it's like particularly strong. Like when it's strong, it's really strong. But I don't know. I think we could see a Walking Ballista unbanned. The card's really good. Don't get me wrong. It's like one of the best cards we've ever seen printed. You know, like it's just really, really good, and it enables a lot of combos, and that's why we see it all the time. But yeah, I don't know. I feel bad for the Scales players. They keep getting something hit like incidentally, you know. They're paying for the sins of other decks. So, oh well. I don't have a lot more to say on it. Do you?
No, I'm not that entrenched in Pioneer, so I'm not as insightful. I think, I guess even if I kind of disagree with the inverter ban, like, I probably would rather see, like, Dig Through Time or something to try and hurt it first. I think mostly these Pioneer bans are, like, it's fine, we get to shake up the format and see what happens, and I'm always, like, pretty okay with that.
Yeah, they all feel like content meets power level ban, or they're like, the power level is probably too high on all these cards, and we need new content. And when you have that mesh, it's very easy to, you know, have a moment like today. Especially when you're in the situation you were before, where it's like in life support. Kethis is banned. That's the last thing hit in Pioneer. I'm going to say what I said about Lotus Breach. Just probably was one of the best things to be doing. Now these other bans happened. You don't want people to feel like the format's already solved. Kethis is kind of a yikes sometimes anyway. That's already solved. Kethis is kind of a yikes sometimes anyways. Glad to see it go. Probably could come back someday. Do you have any thoughts beyond that?
Yeah, I didn't know if Kethis was even like picking up steam in Pioneer, and it makes sense that it's probably just a preemptive like, hey, this is probably just going to be absurd without the other decks to kind of just beat it or keep it in place.
Yeah, Kethis might also be like a lattice ban where like we don't know it's really good and we haven't figured it out, but the subset that have like a 64% win rate or whatever, and like Oath is really, really good in the Kethis decks, and so you just kind of like make sure other people don't figure that out. I don't know. That's just my guess, but because it definitely wasn't blowing doors down, but you would see it every now and again. So whatever. Time for the best format, Historic. We're getting pretty close to work here for both of us, so I'm just going to say both these right now, because we've already kind of talked about this, but Wilderness Reclamation and Teferi Time Raveler are banned. Sorry, they are suspended in Historic. I suspect this will be a permanent suspension, and I'm willing to bet $1 Amerino dollar with any listener. So, Allie, what do you feel about the Teferi Time Raveler and Wilderness Reclamation banned?
First, to be very clear, I will not be betting anyone anything on Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, that's why I said to the listener. I was very clear with my words. If that wasn't clear,
yeah.
I would never bet with Allie or anyone related to WotC with anything when it comes to Magic outcomes.
I'm super happy with these bans. Kind of messes with what I was going to stream today, because I was just going to stream the Historic decks that got 7 wins in day 2 of the Historic Open this past weekend. So I guess I'm brewing today, but
nice.
Yeah, I'm very happy with this. I think Teferi, especially in words that Teferi just kind of ruins. Like when I was playing that Reanimator deck, it just ruins Scholar of the whatever the new blue card. Like you can't, it enters and you cast an instant or sorcery from your graveyard, and you just can't because Teferi's out.
Yeah. I said it during the standard portion. Teferi pseudo bans a lot of cards and prevents a lot of cards from being played, whether you realize it or not. I am very glad to see Teferi gone. I think that card is not very fun to play against and turns off a lot of cards. And despite actually loving, I was playing a Yorion 12 Teferi deck over the last couple of days in Historic just for fun, and that was really cool. But it taught me that wow, Teferi 3 is like really messed up. Again, it re-taught me the lesson. So I'm glad to see that card go, and I'm glad to see Reclamation go. Just get them out. Just like give people a chance. And once again, if you ban Teferi, you unban a bunch of cards, and I think that's true for Historic as well. Historic does kind of have a problem of being like uninteractive, because the stuff that's like uninteractive is really, really good because we don't have the answers, and Teferi was a big answer. But maybe this opens the door to us getting an anthology that has a lot stronger cards in it, or a lot more better reactive cards, right? So I don't know. That's all I have to say on it personally.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, before we head out, Teferi Time Raveler died in Brawl. Really, really, really making me regret buying that stained glass Teferi art just a couple days ago, WotC. Just really doing it to me. Pour one out.
I think an issue with Brawl is that you get to play the Planeswalkers, so as your commander.
Oh, sure, yeah. So you just always have to, like, you literally always have Teferi.
Obnoxious, yeah. So I see it. I like the idea originally that you could have a Planeswalker. As your commander, but now I kind of hate it. So.
Dang. All right, yeah, it's funny. Some things sound really cool in idea, and then you play it, and you're like, actually, this is not as cool as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all so much for listening to this emergency episode. Not the normal kind of CC, not how we normally do things. Last time we did one of these early morning episodes, we knew ahead. They were like, hey, there's a BNR announcement, coming Monday. Like, get ready. Thank God they dropped the announcements. These effects should be live by the time most of you get off work or head home from work if you're, essential worker. So get excited if you're listening to this during your lunch break or whatever. Allie, thank you so much for delaying your stream an hour to come on and do this. Allie, if someone wants to find you, which they could probably find you right now as they're ending this podcast, where can they go?
You can go to Twitter at MythicMeebo or twitch.tv/MythicMeebo. Mythic_Meebo.
Mythic_Meebo, my bad.
Yeah, underscore.
Gotta have it. You're not gonna find Allie if you do without the underscore. You're gonna go somewhere really weird. You don't want to go there. If you want to find me, you go to twitch.tv/TheMasonClark and twitter.com/MasonEClark. Thank you all so much for listening. We'll see you all next week for hopefully a Training Grounds improvement style episode. There's another ban and a restricted announcement